Commander Elena Reyes rubbed her tired eyes as the holographic display flickered before her. 36 hours on duty at Orbital Defense Station Epsilon had left her running on caffeine and determination. The station's sweeping windows offered an unparalleled view of Earth below, a blue marble wrapped in the delicate lace of cloud systems. "Commander, we're detecting anomalous energy readings near Lagrange Point 4, Lieutenant Park reported, her voice cutting through the ambient hum of the command center. Elena straightened in her chair. "Classification: unknown, ma'am. Nothing like this in our database." Before Elena could respond, space itself seemed to tear open. A swirling vortex of indigo energy coalesced into a portal, and through it emerged the most massive vessel humanity had ever encountered. The ship's obsidian hull absorbed sunlight like a cosmic predator, its surface bristling with what appeared to be weapon ports that pulsed with crimson energy. "All stations, battle alert," Elena commanded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. "Notify Earth Defense Command. Activate countermeasure protocols." The alien vessel dwarfed their orbital platform, making Earth's most advanced military spacecraft look like toys in comparison. As emergency klaxons blared throughout the station, the communications officer turned with wide eyes. "Commander, they're broadcasting on all frequencies," he announced, voice trembling. "Breaking through our encryption like it isn't even there." A moment later, displays across the station, and as they would later learn, across every connected device on Earth, displayed the same message. "Your species has been deemed unworthy of independence. Surrender or witness extinction. You have 48 hours to dismiss your governing bodies and prepare for integration." Elena's tactical officer, Major Chen, highlighted a section of the alien vessel where energy readings were intensifying. "They're powering weapon systems, Commander." "Open a channel," Elena ordered. "We need to establish dialogue. Buy some time." Before they could make contact, a pencil-thin emerald beam lanced out from the alien ship toward Luna. The beam struck Luna Base Alpha, humanity's premier scientific outpost. In a blinding flash, the entire facility, home to 200 researchers, simply vanished, leaving nothing but a perfectly circular crater in the lunar surface. Stunned silence filled the command center. "My God," someone whispered. "They just erased it." Elena gripped the edges of her console, fighting the wave of horror threatening to overwhelm her. But as tactical data from the weapon discharge scrolled across her screen, something caught her attention, something oddly familiar in the energy signature. "Send this data to my personal terminal," she ordered, already accessing classified research files from her days at MIT's Quantum Applications Laboratory. The alien weapon's energy pattern matched a theoretical model she'd studied years ago, a project abandoned because human scientists had discovered fundamental instabilities in the approach. Earth had developed more sophisticated alternatives, while these aliens were still using what humans had deemed obsolete. As Earth's military leaders scrambled to formulate a response, Elena's mind raced ahead. She recognized something the aliens clearly didn't. Their supposedly advanced weapon system was built on principles that humanity had explored and discarded for something better. "Get me a secure line to Dr. Hiroshi Takahashi at Quantum Defense Systems," she told her communications officer, a plan already forming. "And download everything we have on the energy signature from that weapon." "What are you thinking, Commander?" Major Chen asked, noting the sudden intensity in her eyes. Elena allowed herself a small, grim smile. "I'm thinking that our visitors might not be as advanced as they believe, and that might be our only chance." "You want to do what?" General Williams barked across the emergency command center established beneath the Rocky Mountains. His weathered face, lined with decades of military service, displayed open skepticism. Elena stood her ground before the wall of screens displaying real-time data on the Vraxian fleet, which had grown to 3 massive vessels in the last 6 hours. "Sir, I believe their weapon technology operates on quantum cascade amplification principles. It's something we experimented with and ultimately abandoned. Commander Reyes, we're facing extinction, and you're suggesting their doomsday weapons are somehow outdated." The disbelief in his voice was matched by the expressions of the Joint Chiefs thanking him. "Not outdated, sir. Simply developed along a different technological path than ours." Elena uploaded data from her tablet to the main display. "We need Dr. Hiroshi Takahashi. He led the original quantum harmonics project before we shifted to graviton-based systems." Admiral Kensington stepped forward. "We don't have time for scientific discussion, Commander. The Vraxians have already demonstrated they can wipe out our installations with a single shot." "With respect, sir, we don't have time not to explore this," Elena countered. "Conventional weapons won't scratch their hulls. If I'm right, we might have a defense." 12 hours later, against direct orders, Elena had established an impromptu laboratory in a decommissioned missile silo. Dr. Hiroshi Takahashi arrived wearing mismatched socks and carrying a battered laptop. At 67, his wiry frame still vibrated with boundless energy. "Elena," he greeted without preamble, "show me what you found." She projected the data she'd captured during the Luna base attack. Hiroshi's eyes widened behind his wire-rimmed glasses as he pored over the energy signatures. He hadn't aged conventionally. Instead, he'd simply accumulated more enthusiasms, his mind constantly leaping between possibilities. "Remarkable," he murmured. "They're using quintessential frequency manipulation to create destructive resonance at the atomic level. Like shattering crystal with the right musical note, but applied to matter itself." Elena nodded. "That's what I thought. But we abandoned this approach 15 years ago." Hiroshi completed her thought, fingers flying across his keyboard. "The Schumann paradox made it too unstable. Any sufficiently complex counter-harmonic would cause catastrophic feedback loops in the emitter. A small team of scientists and engineers, all people Elena trusted implicitly, worked through the night, analyzing the Vraxian weapon signatures, while military forces worldwide mobilized for what seemed like certain defeat. Outside, evacuation orders emptied major cities, causing panic despite government assurances. Hiroshi's expression transformed gradually from concentration to disbelief to unexpected joy. At 3:17 am, he slammed his palm on the workbench. "It's beautiful, really," he said, sketching furiously on a whiteboard. "They've solved the Schumann paradox by brute force, adding incredible power to overwhelm the harmonic instabilities we identified. Is that good for us?" asked Dr. Amara Sen, a quantum physicist who'd worked on the defense satellite network. Hiroshi's smile turned almost predatory. "It's perfect. They're using a sledgehammer where we developed a scalpel. Their weapons are powerful, yes, but fundamentally flawed." Elena leaned forward. "Can we exploit those flaws?" "Better," Hiroshi said, eyes gleaming. "We can design a counter-harmonic field that doesn't just block their weapons, it could potentially capture and redirect their energy." Captain Rodriguez, the only military officer who joined Elena's rogue operation, looked doubtful. "With what equipment?" "We need to reconfigure the entire orbital defense network." Elena pulled up schematics of Earth's satellite grid. "Not reconfigure. Repurpose." Our quantum entanglement communication system already operates on similar principles. We just need to modify the signal. As the Vraxian ultimatum clock ticked down to 24 hours, Elena's team began adapting Earth's satellite network, while the alien commander broadcast increasingly threatening messages. Humanity prepared for the worst, unaware that its greatest minds were discovering that the invaders' terrible weapons contained an unexpected gift, a vulnerability born of technological arrogance. 47 minutes until their deadline, Elena announced, her voice echoing through the hastily established control center. Around her, technicians worked feverishly to implement the modified satellite protocols while monitoring the Vraxian fleet's movements. Dr. Takahashi hadn't slept in 3 days, yet his hands remained steady as he fine-tuned the quantum interference algorithms. Coffee cups littered his workstation, testament to the marathon effort that had brought them to this moment. The harmonic resonance field should create a planetary-scale interference pattern, he explained to the small group of officials who had finally given their blessing to the desperate plan. Their weapons rely on quantum coherence to maintain destructive power. Our counter-harmonic will disrupt that coherence. General Williams rubbed his bloodshot eyes. And if you're wrong, Hiroshi didn't look up from his calculations. Then we've wasted humanity's final hours on an interesting physics experiment. Elena studied the deployment map showing the satellites they'd managed to reconfigure. Only 68% coverage of the planet. The southern hemisphere had significant gaps. We're prioritizing major population centers, she told the general. New York, Beijing, London, Moscow. The Vraxians are repositioning, Captain Rodriguez reported from the tactical station. Their flagship is moving directly over New York City, just as they promised. Millions watched from evacuation zones as the Obsidian Vraxian vessel, now visible to the naked eye, hovered above Manhattan like a dark promise. Elena thought of her sister's family who lived in Brooklyn. Had they gotten out in time? Satellite network online, Dr. Sen reported. Counter-harmonic field initializing. Screens displayed a translucent dome of energy forming high in the atmosphere, invisible to human eyes but registering on their instruments as a delicate lattice of quantum interference patterns. The technology had originally been designed for deep space entanglement communication, now repurposed as humanity's last hope. They're charging weapons, Rodriguez said, voice tight. The room fell silent. Elena exchanged a glance with Hiroshi, whose calm demeanor belied the stakes. Field stability at 93%, Dr. Sen announced. As good as we're going to get. On the main view screen, a spear of emerald energy lanced downward from the Vraxian flagship, a concentrated beam that should, by all rights, vaporize the metropolis below. Elena held her breath as the deadly energy contacted the upper edge of their protective field. What happened next defied expectations. Upon touching the counter-harmonic field, the destructive beam fractured, energy dispersing laterally in cascading ribbons of light. The deadly force meant to annihilate millions transformed into a sentient aurora borealis. Waves of color dancing across the sky above New York in the most spectacular display of light ever witnessed. "My God," General Williams whispered. In Times Square, confused citizens who had defied evacuation orders stood transfixed, recording the phenomenon on their phones. What should have been their last moments became instead a collective gasp of wonder. "It's working exactly as predicted," Hiroshi said, allowing himself a small smile. "The quantum disruption is causing their energy to dissipate harmlessly. The visible light show is merely a side effect, quite beautiful, actually." On the primary communication channel, The Vraxian Admiral's transmission conveyed unmistakable shock, despite the aliens' inhuman features. "Impossible," the translated voice declared. "Your primitive technology cannot resist our weapons." Elena leaned forward and opened a channel to respond. "Perhaps you should reevaluate what you consider primitive," she said, unable to keep a note of triumph from her voice. "Your 48 hours are up, Admiral. We're still here." Inside the Vraxian command ship, the crystalline Admiral stared in disbelief at sensor readings that contradicted everything they had known about conquering less advanced civilizations. For the first time in the history of their expansion, a targeted species had not only survived, but had somehow turned their most fearsome weapon into a harmless light display. And on Earth, a new emotion began to spread. "They're calling for reinforcements," Intelligence Officer Xiaolin reported, her fingers dancing across her console as she monitored intercepted Vraxian communications. The celebration that had erupted after New York's salvation quickly sobered. Multiple transit signatures detected at the edge of our solar system. Elena nodded grimly. The Vraxians wouldn't retreat after a single failure. "How many?" 12 vessels approaching, all larger than the original 3, Lynn answered, pushing her dark-rimmed glasses up her nose. Estimated arrival, 3 hours. Hiroshi had collapsed into much-needed sleep after 72 hours of continuous work, but the rest of the team pressed on. Elena studied the data from the New York incident, looking for exploitable patterns in how the Vraxian weapon had interacted with their counter-harmonic field. "Dr. Sen, can we expand satellite coverage to protect more of the planet?" she asked. Amara Sen shook her head, her usually pristine lab coat now wrinkled from days of wear. "Not without more transmitters. We've repurposed everything available." Captain Rodriguez approached with a tablet displaying tactical simulations. "The Vraxians will likely target our field generators next. If they determine which satellites are projecting the counter-harmonic, they could neutralize our defense." Elena pinched the bridge of her nose, fighting exhaustion. "Then we need to make the field more resilient, more adaptive." A soft snore from the corner was interrupted as Hiroshi suddenly sat upright on the cot where he'd been sleeping. "Adaptive," he exclaimed, as if continuing a conversation no one else had been part of. "That's it." He scrambled to his workstation, hair sticking up at odd angles. "The energy patterns from the deflected beam. Show them to me." Elena projected the data onto the main display. Hiroshi studied it, mumbling equations under his breath. "Extraordinary," he finally declared, eyes wide with excitement. "We're not just deflecting their energy. The counter-harmonic is temporarily capturing it before dispersal." His fingers flew across his keyboard. "With modifications to the satellite network, we could actually harvest this energy." Harvest. General Williams had returned after briefing the president. "For what purpose?" "For whatever purpose we desire," Hiroshi replied. "Their weapons aren't just neutralized. They are potentially the greatest power source humanity has ever encountered." Within hours, a dozen Vraxian warships emerged from portals, forming an intimidating constellation above Earth. They launched a coordinated attack against major cities: Moscow, Beijing, London, Paris. Each beam that struck the counter-harmonic field created the same spectacular light show while feeding valuable data to Elena's team. As they refined their analysis, Elena made another discovery. While examining encrypted files from intercepted Vraxian communications, she found evidence of an empire spanning 27 star systems, all conquered using the same weapons technology. "Look at these tactical reports," she told her team, displaying translated documents. "These other civilizations weren't defeated by superior technology. They were intimidated by what amounts to an impressive light show, because they couldn't see the fundamental flaws we identified. Captain Rodriguez studied the star maps. If we can neutralize their advantage, then we might free these other worlds, Elena finished. But first, we need to survive the current attack. Dr. Sen rushed in from the adjacent lab. I've done it. I've modified the counter-harmonic to not just disperse their energy, but to channel it. We can redirect it to power grids, defense systems, anything with the right receiver. Elena stared at the schematics, mind racing with possibilities. If they could turn the Vraxians' weapons into an energy source, effectively transforming tools of destruction into power for human technology, they might do more than just defend Earth. They might actually gain the upper hand. How quickly can we implement this? She asked. Hours, not days, Amara replied. But I'll need help. Elena looked around at her exhausted but determined team. Then let's get to work. It's time to show the Vraxians that human ingenuity is the most powerful force in this solar system. This is either the boldest mission in human history or the stupidest, Elena told the 6 volunteers assembled in the hangar bay. Before them sat a captured Vraxian scout vessel, a sleek craft with the same obsidian finish as its larger counterparts. A lucky shot from an experimental railgun had disabled it during the initial attack, allowing Earth forces to recover it mostly intact. Captain Maya Ortega, leader of the infiltration team, checked her modified tactical gear. Both, probably, she replied with a tight smile. A decorated Special Forces operative, she had the calm demeanor of someone intimately familiar with impossible missions. Dr. Hiroshi had insisted on joining the mission despite Elena's objections. The technical data we need can only be properly identified by someone who understands the theoretical underpinnings, he'd argued. Now, the aging scientist looked oddly at home among the military personnel, his eyes bright with anticipation. The transponder modifications should make us appear as a returning patrol, Dr. Sen explained, handing each team member a small device. These will help mask your biological signatures from their sensors. According to our analysis, Vraxians perceive a different portion of the electromagnetic spectrum than we do. Elena addressed the team one final time. Your objectives are clear. Infiltrate the command ship, gather technical specifications for their weapons systems, and locate any strategic intelligence about their empire. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. The modified scout vessel slipped away from Earth under cover of a diversionary attack, approaching the Vraxian fleet with forged identification codes. Elena watched from the command center as the tiny craft disappeared among the massive alien vessels. Docking procedure initiated, came Captain Ortega's voice through the secure channel. No challenges so far. Aboard the Vraxian flagship, the infiltration team moved cautiously through corridors that seemed designed for beings both similar to and utterly different from humans. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth's, and the atmosphere carried a faint metallic tang. Movement ahead, whispered Lieutenant Alvarez, the team's security expert. They pressed themselves against the curving walls as a Vraxian patrol approached. For the first time, humans observed their adversaries up close. The aliens weren't the hulking monstrosities depicted in military briefings. They were crystalline beings approximately human-sized, their translucent bodies glowing with internal light. They navigated using self-generated electromagnetic fields that created a subtle distortion in the air around them. Once the patrol passed, Hiroshi's expression was thoughtful. Fascinating. Their physiology explains their technology choices. They developed weapons based on their sensory experience. Light and electromagnetic manipulation would be as natural to them as mechanical tools are to us. Following the ship's schematics, extracted from the scout vessel's database, the team located what appeared to be a central information hub. While Alvarez and two others stood guard, Ortega and Hiroshi accessed the alien computers. "I need longer than we planned," Hiroshi whispered, his fingers dancing across the alien interface he'd spent days learning to operate. "There's something here, something unexpected." The team exchanged nervous glances as precious minutes ticked by. Finally, Hiroshi's face paled. "Download complete, but this changes everything. The Vraxians themselves are merely client species, enforcers for a more ancient civilization called the Archons." "What does that mean for us?" Ortega demanded. "It means they're not Conquerors," Elena realized, listening in from Earth. "They're middle management." Alarms suddenly blared through the ship. "Time to go," Ortega ordered. "We've got what we came for." As they retreated toward their vessel, they passed a chamber filled with strange devices. Hiroshi paused just long enough to scan them. "Weapon cores," he explained as they ran, "but I suspect they could be repurposed for something far more beneficial." The scout ship detached from the Vraxian flagship, just as internal security forces converged on the docking bay. As they accelerated away, banking through the fleet toward Earth, Ortega glanced at the data Hiroshi had stolen. "Was it worth it?" she asked. The scientist nodded slowly, his expression a mixture of awe and determination. "More than you can imagine. We haven't just found their weakness. We've found a way to turn their entire technological foundation against them. These devices will not only neutralize their weapons, but reprogram them entirely." Elena explained to the strike team leaders gathered in the underground command center. Representatives from 12 nations, some former adversaries, stood side by side, united by unprecedented threat and opportunity. On the table before them lay elegant handheld devices, each resembling a sleek metallic wand with a pulsing blue core. The technology represented an impossible leap, a combination of Vraxian quantum principles and human innovation that would have taken decades to develop under normal circumstances. Each converter contains a miniaturized version of our counter-harmonic field generator, Dr. Sen explained, lifting one for demonstration. When placed near a Vraxian weapon system, it establishes a quantum link that allows reprogramming at the fundamental level. Carl Wei from China's Special Forces examined one skeptically. "You're saying we can turn their planet killers into what exactly?" Hiroshi stepped forward, dark circles under his eyes betraying his exhaustion. "Anything we desire. Their weapons operate by manipulating quantum states to destabilize matter. That same principle, reversed, can be used to strengthen, power, or transform. We've identified 3 primary vessel classes in the Vraxian fleet," Elena continued, displaying holographic schematics. "Each will be targeted simultaneously. Captain Ortega's team will lead the assault on the flagship." 24 hours later, as dawn broke over the Himalayas, humanity launched its counteroffensive. Using modified Vraxian transponder codes and the captured scout vessels, strike teams infiltrated multiple ships across the alien fleet. Inside the Vraxian flagship, Captain Ortega led her team through now familiar corridors. "Remember, minimal engagement," she reminded them as they approached the primary weapons control chamber. "We're here to reprogram, not destroy." When they encountered Vraxian security forces, the aliens' weapons, designed to disintegrate organic matter, proved unexpectedly ineffective against the modified armor developed from their own technology. The strike team's non-lethal countermeasures, by contrast, temporarily disrupted the crystalline beings' electromagnetic fields, rendering them immobile without permanent harm. In the vast circular chamber that housed the flagship's main weapon array, engineers worked quickly to apply the converters, while Ortega's team maintained security. A massive central column pulsed with emerald energy, the heart of the ship's destructive capability. Initiating conversion sequence, reported Lieutenant Alvarez, connecting the primary converter to the weapon's control matrix. The device hummed to life, its blue glow spreading through the green energy field. Quantum harmonization at 30%, 60%, complete. The emerald glow shifted gradually to a brilliant azure. Throughout the ship, lights flickered as power distributions changed. The weapon's energy, once channeled for destruction, now flowed into the vessel's systems in new patterns. Converting the primary weapon into a propulsion enhancement, Alvarez confirmed. Efficiency increased by 300%. Similar transformations occurred across the fleet. Fearsome weapons arrays became communication networks, sensors, medical systems, and atmospheric processors. The Vraxians, who had never encountered a species capable of reproposing their technology, responded with confusion that quickly turned to disbelief. On Earth, Dr. Sen monitored the progress. Strike teams report successful conversions on 14 vessels, she announced. The Vraxians aren't even fighting back anymore on most ships. They're just watching. Word spread throughout the alien armada. The supposedly primitive humans weren't just neutralizing their weapons, but improving them. The crystalline beings, who measured status by technological advancement, began questioning their master's wisdom. The final psychological blow came when Elena broadcast footage across the fleet. Children in a Tokyo park playing with toy hovercraft powered by modified Vraxian weapon cores, laughing as the devices, once components of planet-killing weapons, created harmless, beautiful light patterns in the air. Your technology has much to offer. Elena's message concluded, translated into the Vraxian harmonic language. But not as weapons. We invite cooperation rather than conquest. As surrender messages began flooding Earth's communication channels, Elena turned to Hiroshi. Do you think the Arkhams will be as easily convinced? The scientist's expression grew somber. I doubt it. But thanks to what we've learned, we'll be ready. Celebration swept across Earth as news of the Vraxian surrenders spread. In Times Square, crowds gathered beneath screens displaying the transformed alien vessels now orbiting peacefully. Scientists worldwide collaborated on understanding and adapting the repurpose technology. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity dared to believe the crisis might be ending. Elena watched the celebrations from the command center with cautious optimism. We should expand our counter-harmonic shield coverage, she told her team. The Vraxian data suggests the Arkhams won't be pleased with their representative's failure. Before Hiroshi could respond, alarm klaxons blared. Lieutenant Park's fingers flew across her console. Massive energy signature detected beyond Neptune's orbit, she reported, voice tight. Nothing like the Vraxian portals. This is orders of magnitude larger. Long-range sensors displayed the disturbance, a tier in space so vast it could swallow Earth's moon. The Archean dreadnought emerged from the rift like a metallic leviathan birthed from the void. Unlike the angular Vraxian ships, this vessel featured organic curves and pulsing veins of energy that gave it an unsettlingly alive appearance. My God, General Williams whispered. It's the size of Manhattan. The ship's approach defied conventional physics, covering the distance from Neptune to Earth in minutes without any visible propulsion. It took position above the North Atlantic, dwarfing even the largest Vraxian vessels, which scattered from its path like startled fish. We're receiving a transmission, Park announced. All frequencies, all languages simultaneously. The voice that filled the command center carried an unnervingly melodic quality, as though multiple voices were speaking in perfect harmony. "We acknowledge your resourcefulness, humans of Earth. The Vraxian failure has been noted and will be addressed. However, your resistance ends now. Your species has potential that would be wasted through extinction, but you require proper management." Elena opened a channel. "We prefer self-management. Your Vraxian representatives have already discovered our preference for cooperation over subjugation." "A preference we do not share," came the reply. Without warning, a pencil-thin beam of prismatic light lanced from the Archean vessel, piercing Earth's largest orbital defense platform like tissue paper. The station, home to 300 personnel, imploded silently, collapsing into itself until nothing remained but scattered particles. Camter harmonic field had no effect. Dr. Sen reported, her voice shaking. "Their technology operates on principles we haven't encountered." For the first time since the crisis began, Elena saw genuine fear in Hiroshi's eyes. Yet as he studied the debris with growing fascination, his expression shifted. "Their weapon. It's creating a localized singularity," he explained, enhancing sensor readings. "But the underlying principles follow a logical progression from Vraxian technology, just with thousands of years of refinement." Elena watched as military leaders contemplated surrender, but she recognized patterns in the Archean attack that suggested potential weaknesses. "The beam took 3 seconds to charge before firing," she noted. "And it targeted our most obvious defense installation first." Textbook tactical approach. "Give me 48 hours, Hiroshi pleaded to the United Earth Defense Council as they debated their response. "Their advancement follows a logical progression. We can leapfrog their development path because we're not constrained by their evolutionary thinking." Admiral Kensington shook her head. "We don't have 48 hours. They've issued an ultimatum. Surrender within 6 hours, or they'll demonstrate their power on a major city." "Then we need to buy time," Elena said. "The Archons clearly value efficiency. Let's give them something inefficient to deal with." She outlined a desperate plan involving the converted Vraxian fleet, not as a direct assault, but as a complex, distributed distraction. Each reproposed ship would engage the Archean vessel in unpredictable ways, using non-military applications of their technology that the Archons might find difficult to categorize as threats. "They're expecting a conventional defense," Elena explained. "Let's show them how humans think outside expected parameters. We don't need to win, we just need to survive long enough for Hiroshi to find their weakness. All ships, execute Operation Lighthouse." Elena commanded from the bridge of the reproposed Vraxian flagship, now named Prometheus. Earth's transformed fleet, a patchwork of human and alien technology, engaged the Archon dreadnought in what appeared to be a chaotic, uncoordinated assault. The Archons responded with predictable efficiency, targeting the largest vessels first with their singularity weapons. But the human strategy wasn't focused on direct confrontation. Each ship executed seemingly random maneuvers, deploying modified Vraxian technology in ways that confused Archean targeting systems. "They're expecting military logic," Elena explained to her bridge crew. "We're giving them 100 different civilian applications instead." One vessel converted its weapons into a massive communications array, broadcasting thousands of contradictory signals. Another transformed its energy systems into atmospheric processors, surrounding the Archean ship with complex weather patterns. Earth's largest carrier deployed modified shield technology that didn't block attacks, but rather fragmented them into harmless light displays. "The Archons are diverting resources to analyze our technology," reported Lieutenant Park, monitoring the enemy vessel's energy fluctuations. Their response time is increasing. On Earth, Dr. Takahashi led a global team working frantically to complete modifications to the planetary defense grid. Building on their understanding of Vraxian quantum principles and observations of Archon weapons, they developed a revolutionary approach, not to deflect or block the alien technology, but to capture and redirect it. The Singularity weapons operate on principles we theorized but never implemented. Hiroshi explained to the engineers worldwide. They're creating microscopic artificial gravity wells to collapse matter. But gravity, like all forces, can be manipulated with the right quantum approach. When the Archons finally tired of the diversionary tactics, they positioned their dreadnought above the North American continent. "Your resistance is illogical and inefficient," came their transmission. "Observe the consequence of your defiance." The massive vessel charged its primary weapon, a planet killer capable of shattering Earth's crust. As the prismatic beam lanced downward, humanity collectively held its breath. The beam contacted the atmosphere and something miraculous happened. Instead of destroying its target, the energy flowed into the modified global network, channeled through quantum reception nodes on every continent. Power grids worldwide surged with unprecedented energy as the destructive force was captured and converted. "Impossible," came the Archon transmission, their harmonious voice discordant for the first time. Elena opened a channel. "Not impossible. Just unexpected. Your weapons are impressive, but ultimately they follow rules that can be understood and redirected." 6 months later, Elena watched children playing in a Washington, D.C. park with toys powered by Archon energy cells. The miniature spacecraft that darted through the air would have been considered advanced technology just a year ago. Nearby, construction crews used converted Archon beaming technology to effortlessly raise structural components for a new research center. Household appliances, transportation networks, and manufacturing facilities now ran on captured weapon energy. The technology that was meant to subjugate Earth had instead catapulted human civilization forward by decades. The Archons, faced with an adversary that transformed their greatest weapons into constructive tools, retreated from known space. Across 27 formerly subjugated worlds, revolutionaries adopted Earth's conversion technology, turning the tools of their oppressors into means of advancement. As Elena walked through the Global Defense Headquarters, now primarily focused on peaceful space exploration, she passed a display case containing a simple toy, the first device powered by converted Vraxian technology. Beside it stood a plaque with words that had become Earth's unofficial motto. "Humanity doesn't merely survive, it transforms. Where others see only destruction, we find potential. Where others build weapons, we create tools. Our greatest strength isn't in our ability to fight, but in our capacity to reimagine, repurpose, and rebuild." The message had spread throughout the galaxy. The weapons designed to end human civilization had instead become the foundation for its greatest age of prosperity and innovation. And somewhere in distant space, the Archons contemplated a species that had done what none before had managed, turned their most fearsome technology into mere toys.